I decided to do something a bit different in this video. This little guy here is a half-scale human skull on a Pike that I made maybe a year ago. Welcome to Creative Making, my name's Pete, and in this video I'm going to make a 1:1 scale version of this. This is part 1. So you can get an idea of how big those skulls were. Here's one with the base, and the Pike would go in there and through that hole there. I've 3D printed all the bits and bobs that I already need. So there's a base, I might have to come back to that. Cardboard tube for the Pike, and here's a skull that I got off Bamboo Labs model site. I'll put a link below for those. So yeah, the cardboard tube I'm going to use for the actual Pike. I'll be covering that with some epoxy dough. I'm a little bit concerned about the base. Might not be the right size, but I'll come back to that in a second. This skull is exceptionally good. It comes in multiple parts, just like that. There's also a jaw with it. So yeah, this base, the thing that I'm worried about is that hole there is big enough for this cardboard tube. But I am planning on sculpting over the top of that to get some wood grain, which will make it a bit wider, which means it won't fit into there. So I'm going to come back and rejig that later on. But until then, let's crack on, let's glue this skull together. It's pretty simple, just using some super glue. There is some big gaps you can see in this print, but they're mostly large at the front. I'm not too worried about that, and I'm definitely not worried about the gaps around the back because I'll be sculpting on, you know, sort of dried out flesh and putting some hair on it, so you won't even see those. Just pop the top on there with a bit more super glue. And a little bit of zip kicker there just to get it going. So while that's curing, I'll move over to the base. This is Fusion 360. Let's just open the base model, the original one. There we go. You can see it's solid down the middle, so I'm just going to cut a bigger hole. I'm going to make a 50mm wide cylinder, and I'm going to extrude that down and use that as the tool to cut out the hole. So there we go, got a slightly bigger hole now. Once I'm happy with that, I'll then open it up into Bamboo Studio. I'm not a specialist or an expert in this digital stuff, so those of you that are, forgive me. Let's stick some supports on this. That looks good enough to me. And we'll send that over to the printer. While that's printing then, let's join these bits of cardboard tube together. A single tube on its own is not long enough, so I just need to put a couple of inches on the end. So I just need to cut that bit off there. So I'll use my sharpest tool in the toolbox. Absolutely blunt as, yeah, whatever. So let's get the big guns out. Basically what I'm going to do here is I'm obviously going to cut this piece off, and then I'm going to use some small styrene tabs glued into the end of that. That will just help me, when I put them two together, it'll just help it all line up properly. Okay, so we'll just snap this off and cut it up, make the little tabs. I should have really used hot glue for this actually, it would have been quicker, but I ended up using super glue and it was fine. And then that would slot into the end just like that. I did finally glue this in with some hot glue and there you go, it all lines up nice. Next thing to do is to sculpt the point of the pike with some kitchen foil. And I sculpted that and taped that on, and that's that kind of ready. I need to sculpt a wood pattern in now, and for that I'm going to use some Freeform Air. So Freeform Air is just an epoxy putty, super lightweight. For that I'm going to need obviously the Freeform Air. It's useful to have a board on because it's a bit messy. It mixes equal parts together and you want to mix it until it's equal colour, you don't want any streaks in there. And then you can just use it like clay. I actually ended up painting the card tube with a bit of water to help this stick on. As you can see, it's not sticking very well there. A little bit of water helps it bond. I ended up covering the whole thing and this is what it looks like. Doesn't look like wood. While we're waiting for that to cure up, let's have a look at the 3D print. It looks alright to me. You kind of 3D printing experts would probably be screaming at the screen now. But yeah, it works. So you can see there, that's the original one, and there's that hole. You can see the little ridge there. And this is a new one with a bigger hole. That should be big enough to get the pike in there. It's a bit of a mess, but I'm going to cover it up later on. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to just tidy this up a little bit. I wanted to try and make it look not so bumpy, so I'm using that Japanese Rasp. These things are a life changer, is that right? Yeah. I ended up using my little mini Dremel, dremeling all the wood grain in, which took quite a while. So that's it, bit of wood grain in there. It's not perfect, but once it's got painted and the skulls on there, it should look pretty convincing. So off camera, I filled some of those gaps in with a bit of Freeform Air, and I'm just going to quickly tidy those up now. Not too bothered if they're 100% hidden, because I'll be covering them up. Starting off with some 60 grit sandpaper, quite heavy stuff. This Freeform Air sands really well, really easily. It's actually great for all kinds of things, sculpting and filling and carving once you've got a block of it. Yeah, it's very cool. So just go over those gaps there. As I say, I'm going to end up painting this and covering this with Manky Flesh. So we'll go on to some 240 grit now, just to try and bring that down a bit more, and then I'm going to use some Scotch pad just to finish it off. If you're not quite sure what Scotch pad is, it's this stuff here. So while I was doing that, I thought it'd be nice to take some of the teeth out. It looks too pristine with all those teeth in. So I'm just going to mark which ones I want to remove. And then off camera I used my Dremel and I took those out and it looks so much better. Okay, so almost there with the prep. You can see I've marked on the front of the skull there a circle, that's where the pike will come out. There's also a mark on the back of the skull. So I'm just going to use one of these hole saws to cut through the skull. These things are incredibly safe to use, no problems at all. Okay, so here are all the parts then ready to rock. So that's the Pike. There's the skull. I ended up cutting the hole out the front as well. Jaw, and of course the stand. And that little piece that I cut out. So there's a hole right the way through there. The little piece that I cut out, I'm actually going to cut that up and make kind of fragments of bone that I'll stick on so it looks like the bone's broken. There's the Pike. And with a skull kind of roughly just put on there. So you kind of get an idea of what it's going to look like. So there you go, that's kind of the initial prep. In the second part of this 2-part video, I'm going to be doing the artwork, I'm going to be doing the sculpting and the painting. I'm going to add hair to this guy, it's going to look pretty grim. But thanks very much for watching. Please consider subscribing, liking and sharing this. And I'll see you all in part 2 of this series. Thanks everybody, bye!